Humans aren't born out of laying around on their asses. We've been born out of conquering a world. We're the dominant species. We built all this. We're powerful and we're beautiful and we're ready to build the next level of civilization in God's plan. But you must stop bowing to those who want to make you a victim. You must become the victor. If you love God and you want to build a pro-human future, then you are an enemy of the New World Order and Satanism. They want us shut down because we have the Spirit. I'm jacked into the source. I know the secret, and I want to see you empowered. But you have to believe in yourself first. This is the truth, and everyone knows it.
You know, I've got to give it to Pirate Software. This thumbnail is just incredible. Absolutely love it. From a design choice, it looks really good. Now, Pirate Software has come out with a video. This was released 14 hours ago. And it's called Godot 2 Angry Edition. Now, I made my video on the Godot situation a couple weeks ago, I think at this point. And my position was pretty clear that I thought that they made a mistake, that they alienated people by taking this tone of being pro-wokeness. Now, what I will say from the outset is it's very clear that Thor is a more left-wing guy. He's more accepting and approving of some of the more, I'll just put it my way, unsavory. That's my polite way of putting it. The more unsavory elements of the rot in the gaming industry. He doesn't seem to be a person that talks about it much, and based on his attitude in this video, I think that he thinks that it's not really a problem and that people are just blowing it out of proportion. And unfortunately, that seems to be an attitude that a lot of people have, that if they're not able to address it, they just pretend that it doesn't exist. But we know that that's bullshit. We know that it does exist. We've seen it happen. We've seen the end result of it, unfortunately, over and over and over again. We've seen the decay that comes from adopting his sort, well, not his, but that sort of more left-wing perspective into your company, that sort of woke ideology, where you antagonize fans, you create an environment at your workplace that is anti-consumer, because by the very nature of the people that work there, they want to build a game that is entirely founded on spite and malevolence. And so you will actively do things that you know that the audience doesn't want. But you think that in the end, it's going to be a win for you because you are under the delusion that more people agree with you, more people are on your side, and so therefore, these people, these chuds, these right-wingers, you're going to be able to own them, and everyone is going to applaud you, and you're going to be able to win all the Game of the Year awards, and everyone's going to affirm you, and unfortunately, that's not the reality. Wokeness is a poison. It's not unlike the rot from Nurgle. You think that this is a benevolence that you're giving out to people, but wokeness is the virus. It is the rot. It is the pestilence. It is the plague. It's an infectious, disgusting, miasmic disease that infects everything that it touches, and the people who are the most infected by it want to infect others, and they think that they're sharing their benevolence. It is almost identical to Nurgle and his so-called gifts. Now, in this situation, you had a company who had a relatively good reputation that posted this statement here. Apparently, game engines are woke now. Well, then, we can't complain. Show us your woke hog cams below. And Thor's reaction to this was to dismiss this in its entirety, and to ultimately come up with the line that if this bothered you, then you need to go outside. That's essentially what it is. He doesn't even have the time of day to listen to whatever grievance you may have because he thinks it's so utterly ridiculous. Which for me basically makes his opinion ridiculous. Because if you're that delusional, or you're head up your own ass about this, and you're not willing to listen to what people are saying, whether you think that they're right or wrong, and he shows some posts here and says that some of the information may have been incorrect, and that's entirely possible. There is a lot as it relates to, there's a lot as it relates to the stuff that is misinformation, but the fact is that there's a lot of it that is true, and this guy focuses on the part that isn't true, and then tries to double down and say, well, this whole thing was a total and complete, scandal. But no, the reality is that there was a big issue with and this is something that he doesn't even address in any degree. He talks about the Discord servers, but he doesn't mention the fact that people looked at the moderators for the fan Discord and the official Discord, and there's a lot of overlap. Now, you don't get to then immediately divest yourself if a lot of the people from the official Discord are moderators in the fan Discord. Do you understand what I'm saying? He doesn't even attempt to address that. He just dismisses it like he dismissed the other things. Now, the reason why I'm not going as hard on him and going on as hard on this is because I think that this guy, he has a different approach. And I think that it's fine. There's a lot of people that like him. But for me, I'm more interested in brutal honesty than comforting lies. And the comforting lie here is that, no, wokeness it's not even really a big deal. In fact, if you have an issue with wokeness, if you have an issue with identity politics, if you have an issue with a company that is directly antagonizing its audience, then there's something wrong with you. Well, no, there's something wrong with the person who made that incredibly irresponsible tweet from the official post. And this has been a major problem where you have people who are devs and insiders, and this guy is definitely an insider. This guy is not a fan. This guy has deep insider access to all of these different companies. He knows people. His dad knows people. So he and I are not the same on this. I'm coming at this from an entirely external position. I'm coming at it from the position of a pure consumer. And I'll tell you, the one thing that will immediately drive me from your product, from your brand, from your reputation, is if you dismiss the concerns of the consumer based on you not wanting to admit something is true, based on you denying wokeness, based on you antagonizing your audience, dismissing the valid critiques in favor of trying to obfuscate and gaslight, which is exactly what he did in this video, and just ignoring the criticism that people have that is very, very, very real. And this, I think, is a problem with game developers in the modern landscape. Now, do I think he's the worst of them? No, by no means do I think he's the worst of them. But I do think that he is part of that problem, where you have people that have legitimate grievances. Maybe some of these people went a bit too far. Maybe they said something that wasn't true, or they misunderstood something, but they were very passionate about it. But what this guy doesn't seem to understand is that wokeness is kind of like the gifts from Nurgle. It is an infection, and it has been infecting a lot of things. And that is not an instant death. That is incremental. And so while 20 years ago, people's view probably would have been largely what he said. Oh, what does this even matter? Over time, as this infection has metastasized to other franchises, comic books, movies, television, I mean, you name it. There's not been one franchise from my childhood that has gone unmolested by this left-wing, woke, regressive mindset. And I got to tell you, that does have an accumulative effect. And so when I'm looking at something like this, when I'm looking at the flippant disregard, yeah, maybe this on its own doesn't seem like it's that much to you, but I think it is. And if you are not willing to even listen and your approach is go touch grass, this is just internet drama, no. And if you're not able to differentiate between just mindless internet drama and what people have a legitimate issue with, then I think that your tone should reflect that. And I don't think you should be as dismissive as you are. That's my personal opinion about this. You know, I've always said that I like to match energies, you know, as it were. I like to match energies. This guy has a relatively calm tone. He presents things in a way that, you know, isn't overly hostile. I don't think there's any need to elevate or escalate at all. I think I can match his energy pretty well. I'm just saying that if you want to convince people and make your point, the way to do it is not by acting like all of the other game developers that people have come to despise. Which, I gotta tell you, how many times have we, over the last 15 years, heard game developers just dismiss fans out of hand? Or call them whiny entitled gamers, or tell them to go touch grass, or go outside. Why do you even care about this? Over and over and over, we've heard the same sort of things, and I gotta tell you, that sort of dismissal of the consumer is why a lot of your fellow game developers, they're getting unemployed. They're getting laid off. Now you can say, well, it's because the corporations are greedy, and you can come up with a bunch of different explanations, and some of that may be true, but at the end of the day, you take a look at some of the biggest studios from 12, 15 years ago. When I was growing up, BioWare, Bethesda, Blizzard, they were the biggest. No one was even close to the 3Bs. Like, you looked at BioWare, Knights of the Old Republic, Jade Empire, Mass Effect, Dragon Age Origins, just to name a few. I mean, they were kings of their industry, and now they're nothing. And if you look at their behind-the-scenes politics, it's because a lot of them have adopted this more sort of left-wing woke perspective. And if you don't like the word woke, that's fine. I use it for the sake of brevity, but the reality is that the word woke is an effective tool. And the reason why it's an effective tool is because people immediately understand it without any sort of prefix or suffix or any sort of addendum or addition. People understand the word woke even if it's an imperfect tool. And that's why I think that it's very, very effective. But here's the deal. People want games more in the style of Space Marines 2. They do not want games in the style of, Concord, for example. They want games that are going to ultimately leave them with a positive experience, a positive feeling. They don't want to feel like there's, this sort of woke infection involved with their products. Now, you may disagree with that, but it's true. And the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and the financials, they're telling a story. The MCU did phenomenally well. Then what do? They try to go to an all-female MCU. What happened? It immediately bombed. Because nobody wanted that, but they tried to push that on people. So this guy goes and brings up a lot of stuff and tries to deflect from this, but here's the reality. This all started because tensions are high as it relates to this, because so many people have disrespected and disregarded fans for so long that there's no sort of goodwill or grace anymore. If you adopt yourself as a woke company, it isn't like this, let me just casually say this. No, the moment that you do, you put yourself in a different sort of category, and people are hyper sensitive to that. And you as a game developer have to be aware of that. And even if you don't like it, you have to accept it. People do not want left-wing woke identity politics into their game. They don't want the people behind the scenes showing that overly much. They don't want the marketing to be that. They don't want the community managers to show that. This is a very basic thing that I'm explaining, but there are some people that just refuse to accept it. And so Thor may be one of those people. I don't know, but I did want to talk about this because I do think that well, my hope is that people like him and other game developers learn not to basically tell people to go touch grass, but actually give some thought as to why this is going on, instead of just doubling down and tripling down to, quote unquote, be right, which he wasn't right. I don't think he was right. I think that he handled it poorly in the beginning because he dismissed a lot of the initial critiques, and then he went in to try to hyper focus on one or two things to dismiss all of it, which is, I think, a disingenuous way to argue and not really that effective because people aren't going to buy it. Some people will, but most people won't. And the reputation stain on Godot is going to be there. So whether you think that it's important or not, the reputational damage is there. And also, there was a lot more issues going on behind the scenes. And he knows it, and we all know it. It wasn't as simple as he's trying to make it, that it was just some overblown reaction. Anyway, that'll do it for today's video, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you next time.